Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Many of you have probably seen, I wrote a post on the Next Web recently after watching how David Letterman and the audience of his show, The Tonight Show back in the day, mocked Bill Gates when he spoke about how the internet will transform their lives. I think it was back in 1995. It's a great video, and try and look it up if you do have time, because to me, it felt exactly the same as when I mentioned the words blockchain or cryptos to my friends now. Because I'm convinced that this technology is going to transform everything. But my friends outside of tech circles just can't see it and look at me like I'm a complete madman. So I'm on a mission. I figured the road to making blockchain or cryptos a success is education, awareness and mainstream adoption. So today I invited Chris Garner from Oyster Pearl onto the show to not only explain how he sees this landscape, but also his vision for Oyster Pearl, both here, now and the future. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Australia so we can speak with Chris Garner from Oyster Pearl. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Chris. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, thanks, Neil. Yeah, my name's Chris Garner. I'm the CMO of Oyster Protocol. We're a cryptocurrency. We've done our ICO and we're now live with Mainnet. And Oyster Protocol really tries to solve three really clear critical problems. I'm going to try and explain this very top line. I'm a big fan of Einstein, and he obviously said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then really you don't understand it very well at all. Yeah. So the three problems we're trying to solve is, one, giving companies access to encrypted, secure data storage. And then two, we want to allow website publishers, mobile app developers to have an additional new revenue stream, as opposed to typically what happens to those guys serving ads. And then three, the end user, people like you and I or your mother and father when they're browsing online, they're typically bombarded with annoying ads or pop-ups. We want to provide an alternative for those people so that they can engage with content rather than just engaging with ads. And, we're finding that ultimately publishers are having to create very clickbait type content or very loose celebrity gossip rather than quality depth content that's useful to the end user. So those are the three problems we're trying to solve. And again, if we get deeper into each of those problems, we can see why specifically.
Excellent. I love you mentioning the Einstein quote there because it's so true. And I think so many people are intimidated by blockchain and cryptocurrencies at the moment that it's great to be able to explain to them and get the point across. So for some people that are listening that will be familiar with blockchain, crypto, and indeed Oyster, but for the others out there, this will be their first introduction. So can you tell anyone that's new to this space as a whole why you think blockchain, why you think cryptocurrencies are here to stay, and will also transform the world in the same way that the internet did years ago?
Well, yeah, I like to sort of keep it focused on Oyster specifically. So, there's a lot of talk about blockchain being immutable ledgers. It can't be corrupted. It can't be hacked. And that's really what we're trying to offer enterprise companies. We've been looking at a lot of data, and the analysis coming out of the US is something like $300 billion a year of intellectual property theft occurs for corporations. And, if you look at those corporations that it's happening with, it's these massive companies like Equifax, who last year alone lost about 100 million private records, including, national insurance numbers, credit card details, things like that. Others are JP Morgan. They got hacked. About 80 million data records went from there. Dropbox has been hacked. So when you store your files on their cloud, that's actually, I think, 65 million people were public records were stolen and put online with companies like that. So, there's clearly a problem with the way that data is stored. And obviously, companies that you think you should have a sense of security with where your data is, that you're not really getting that. So, Oyster Protocol wants to be able to give those kind of companies access to store their data in an encrypted, anonymous way that cannot be hacked. And I think that's what really blockchain's all about. But, we're going to use something called the IOTA tangle, and I want to get a little deeper into that because it's quite different to blockchain. Usually, blockchain is every node has a record of all the transactions. But with IOTA, what it is every time there's a transaction, you validate 2 other transactions as well. So it's a much faster way to scale blockchain. It's called a tangle, and a different way of storing the data.
So, like you said, Oyster is aiming to power an ad-free internet, but you also listed quite a few problems there. So the question I've got to ask then, I mean, you did hint at it there a little bit, but how are you going to solve those problems with Oyster?
The way that enterprise companies, they put their data into the Oyster protocol, we split that into millions of chunks and encrypt each one individually and store it on this IOTA tangle. So IOTA is the Internet of Things. Every device in the world that is connected via Wi-Fi to the internet can be a web node in the IOTA tangle. And it's a very sophisticated way of using the technology. It's very different to the standard blockchain of Bitcoin, where you've got a very slow transaction speed, somewhere in around about 3 or 4 transactions a second can be resolved on Bitcoin. And with Ethereum, it's somewhere in the region of 9, 10, or 11. So scalability for those types of blockchain are problematic, whereas the IOTA tangle offers this new way of 0 transaction fees, and you're able to store this data in a much more succinct manner. So then on the other side, for website publishers, people like yourself, or websites like The Guardian or CNN or The Independent, they can use one line of code on that site. So when a user interacts with that site, they'll get a consent box saying that, do you consent to use the Oyster protocol in order to get an ad-free experience? And we believe that 50 to 60% of users will say yes, because there's a huge amount of annoyance with ads in their own right at the moment. So then what they're actually doing is a tiny amount of their unused resources is going to be used to do proof of work, and I'll get into that bit a little bit later. Proof of work for storing this data. It's not like these you're going to be mining on your CPU or your GPU, but a tiny bit of your electricity will be able to support this, and then that's how the website publishers are going to earn Pearl, our cryptocurrency token. So on one side, you've got enterprise companies buying Pearl, which is pegged utility to our data storage, and then on the other side, website owners and mobile app developers can earn Pearl by implementing the script on their website, so that they then can start to have an additional revenue stream, as opposed to always, right now, those people only get an option of serving ads to make money, which is, devaluing the content.
Now, you mentioned the token there, so I've got to ask, what is the role of the token? And for anyone listening that is familiar with crypto space, what is the difference between what you're doing with Oyster and another crypto solution such as BAT and their Brave browser and basic attention token? Yeah,
it's a good question. So there are multiple people doing similar things to what we're doing, but no one's doing it in this unique way to solve these problems simultaneously. So on one side with the data storage, there are companies like Filecoin, Sidecoin, and Storj. They're all allowing users to store data, redundant data, and people will pay with their cryptocurrency to buy that data. Similarly, with Oyster, you can buy data, say that one Pearl token, which costs at the moment about 40 US cents, will give you 64 gigabytes of data a year. You can then access that in a sort of Dropbox user experience or user interface and store your data anonymously, no logins or passwords. You get an encryption key for each file you load. And so then that Pearl token that they've bought, we will then bury that token with the file so that the website publishers can then use the script on their site and earn that Pearl. So it's kind of two-way marketplace. It's very different to BAT, because in the end, BAT, and it's a great solution, BAT, don't get me wrong, it's a browser that they've built that they're talking about delivering ads to you. So it's still an ad experience. And, we think that the only way that you can access content on the internet for free is via advertising, then the internet is broken. And some of this is resonating with Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the luminary that founded the internet in the first place. So with BATS, which is a basic attention token, you're still going to be able to, you're still going to get ads. And, that ultimately still cheapens the user experience. We want to be able to offer something completely different in that. And I think we're the only cryptocurrency that's trying to solve these two problems collectively for the better for the end user.
That's a great point you made there. Now, you've also had an exciting few weeks where the Oyster team is proudly recently unveiled the Oyster Mainnet, where users can now host their files using the Oyster Mainnet that you just mentioned there. But can you tell the listeners more about exactly what Oyster Mainnet is, and also what makes it so exciting for both you and everyone involved at the moment?
Yes, that's a great question as well. So the Mainnet launched about a week ago, and what that's allowing users to do is store up to 5 megabytes of data in the IOTA Tangle. No one's really done this as yet, so it's, this technology that we're building is innovative and it's, first in market. We're able to store that at really high speeds as well, so it's not slow like Bitcoin or Ethereum in terms of uploading that data. And, what that means is we've created this minimum viable product. Right now, we need to be investing more time to grow this so that people can have terabytes of data stored there, and then enterprise companies can obviously, that will be attractive for them to store their data there in addition. Similarly, we hope that we're able to use this data storage providing for companies like Amazon Web Services, where a lot of people use this S3 bucket, which is for storing files and images. Now, again, that's not encrypted in the same way as with our technology. So we want to be able to build that and give that to website publishers and to web hostage providers as well. So again, there's a huge difference in the way we're looking at the internet and the whole internet economy, because we just don't think that the way it's working right now is giving great value to high-value content sites. Everyone is racing for clicks and eyeballs, and, celebrity gossip reigns true, and your data's being used in goodness knows in how many different ways without your control. I just don't think that there's huge value in it for the end user.
No, I really agree with what you're saying there. And I think it was Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff that recently called Facebook the new cigarettes of our industry. I mean, how do you think that Apple, Facebook, Google, etc. are going to adapt in this new age of trust and transparency?
Well, I agree with Mark Benioff in that. I mean, Facebook and a few other social networks have been designed completely to create small amounts of dopamine hits in your brain, whether you get shares, likes. Even if you stop using Facebook for a little bit, you'll start to see that it's so needy that it will start sending you text messages and emails asking you to start to share things. It is reliant on getting users to use it in that way, because it's selling your data directly to any advertiser that wants to operate it. It doesn't verify which advertisers use it, and obviously those advertisers could be political groups. Again, as long as you've got a credit card, you can access the data on Facebook and start to show ads or manipulative messages to any user group that you specifically want to target, and the end user has no real control over that or which ads they see. So, I think that, and I can't see it happening, Facebook could provide a subscription model that you could opt out of ads, but they make so much money from advertising. And again, Apple today have sort of released something whereby you can stop tracking certain things within their Safari browser. But again, that's not been released yet. And on the ad side as well, about 90% of all digital advertising is owned by Facebook and Google. So all the other companies that are trying to gain revenue online, and that's institutions like the BBC.com, from a global perspective, and The Independent, they're all fighting for that 10% that's left over. And again, within that 10%, maybe 20% of that money is ad fraud or it's ad blocked as well. So it's a fast race to the bottom, with Google and Facebook really dominating the lion's share of the revenue and therefore dictating the terms, even with respect to GDPR, to that end user. They've offered, with Google and Facebook specifically, they've said that they are GDPR compliant, And the nature is, if you consent to use Facebook, then we can use your data. And if you don't consent, you can't use Facebook, which, again, I don't think is what GDPR was supposed to be designed to work like.
Absolutely. And as services such as Oyster continue to revolutionise and disrupt traditional business models, how do you see the future of digital marketing, advertising and the whole industry there? And equally, affiliate marketing, how do you see that having to evolve?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because, for me, I'm very focused on providing an alternative for the publishers to generate revenue, because right now they've only got advertising as a method of revenue generation. So there are other companies that are looking to revolutionize affiliate marketing, but in the end of the day, that's still tracking a user like yourself on the sites that you go, what you do, and where and how you do it, all the way through to a purchase. So again, whilst it might revolutionize it, it's just going to be a way of getting more money from advertisers into the back pockets of the big players and using your data as leverage to do that. So they'll get more and more sophisticated about doing it, but ultimately that'll leave themselves more open to fraud. And I think 50% of all online ads, they're not even seen by the end user. So there's a huge amount of fraud. It's a massive problem, but the big sites, again, they turn a blind eye to it because that's just revenue in their back pocket, and ultimately that means that their share price increases, their stockholders are happy, and that's all they're serving to right now. There was some quotes around Sean Parker, one of the founders of Napster and a very early investor in Facebook, and he said if he could look back in the way that Facebook was designed, he's almost ashamed of what it's doing because it's not adding value to society by connecting people like it first laid out. It's really trying to do the exact opposite by giving data and sort of creating filter bubbles where people only see the things other people like. There's no discourse around or communication around groups outside of that. So it's a problem. I believe there should be some regulation for those big players. There's a lot of scrutiny in the cryptocurrency world about regulation, and maybe right now only 50 million people own some form of cryptocurrency globally, whereas there are 2 billion users using Facebook monthly, and there's no regulation about how the ads are served and what the control is of the message. Facebook themselves say they are a platform, but to me, they're really a publisher, and they need to take responsibility for the content that's on that site and what it's being used for.
Absolutely. But what's your grand vision for Oyster? I mean, what's the end game for you there?
Well, look, there's no question that we're not going to be able to take $300 billion of advertising revenue overnight and ship it into Oyster, but we just want to provide companies and publishers who are focused on quality content an alternative choice. And in the same way, we want to be able to offer enterprise companies and end users a way to secure their data, their images and their pictures so that they're safe. I mean, right now, if you upload pictures into Dropbox or data into there, it's all scanned. In Google Drive, all your images are scanned. The copyright is questionable who owns it. And what they do with that data thereafter, you've got no clue. So we want to be able to provide users a choice. And I think that that's really important because right now there doesn't seem to be a choice. It's basically give us your data and we'll provide this service and then we'll serve you ads. Outside of that ecosystem, I can't see many other business models evolving. And so Oyster Protocol wants to be that business model, that new economy, that new revenue stream.
So in your immediate future, what's next for Oyster? I mean, can you share some of the goals on your roadmap for the next 18 months?
Yeah, definitely. We want to be able to, like I say, provide those enterprise companies much greater depth in the storage on the IO to Tangle. We want to be able to evolve the technology so we have a slick user experience and user interface. And we want to as well be able to scale the number of publishers that can use the technology too. I mean, right now we're in a beta phase of beta testing, so we have access to over 2 million unique users a monthly, but that's tiny in comparison to the online marketplace of users, which again is around about 4 billion active users. So, it's about evolving the technology so it can scale rapidly, and then we'll have move into the next phase of commercializing the product in a much more enterprise manner.
Excellent. Well, a huge thank you for coming on to the show today. But before I do let you go, could you remind the listeners of where they can find Oyster online, download your white paper maybe, contact your team if they have any questions on what exchanges they can find a Pearl token, or just carry on the conversation that we started today?
Yeah, sure. So if you go to oysterprotocol.com, you'll find all the information about what we are and who we are. There's also a very active Telegram group on there. We have over 10,000 members, and we're trying to keep the conversation around the technology. We're not really interested in the short-term speculative price of cryptocurrency. And I think if you speak to any company within the space, that's the primary focus. It's to build scalable technology. It doesn't happen overnight. And whilst there may well be wild speculation around the price of the coins, we're in it for the long term. So we want to provide stable technology platforms for end users, for publishers, and for enterprise companies, first and foremost.
That's fantastic to hear. I've lost count of the amount of Telegram groups that I've left, which are just full of people saying, when moon,
Yeah, when Lambo. Yeah, those guys, we have a really active community management system and within our Telegram group to remove those people, and we put them in a trading group, then they can talk about that kind of stuff all they like. We're fascinated about the end use case of the technology and how we're going to get it into the hands of the people that need it. And I think that most serious cryptocurrency companies, hopefully that you speak to, Neil, will have the same approach.
Absolutely. I love your old ethos there, because it is all about technology and all about solving problems and being in it for the long term. So the fact that you're evolving your technology and aiming to create an ad-free internet is a fantastic thing. So I wish you the best of luck with that. I hope you stay in touch with me, and let's get you back on in another 6 months, see how that journey's progressing. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no worries, Neil. We'll come back and show some case studies for sure, and how real-life situations and real-life companies are benefiting from our product, and then hopefully end users too.
Before today's show, I've been following both Oyster Protocol and its linked cryptocurrency, PRL, very closely. And I have also noticed a real contrast between many of the followers in crypto on Telegram or Reddit who only seem to be concerned with when Lambo or when will it moon, and the guys behind these companies who believe in the tech are in this for the long term, not just some quick win. So for me personally, I reject the notion of crypto and the get-rich-quick club, but applaud those that are leading the way with technology that will ultimately transform the entire business landscape along the way. Sure, early investors of successful projects will make huge returns, but this should not be top of the agenda. What is the problem? How does blockchain and crypto token create a solution? How are the company going to fix this problem? What is the tech roadmap? Do they have more than just a flimsy white paper that is just a concept or a developer's dream? And the guys at Oyster appear to answer all those questions without me having to dig too deep there. So I'll continue to watch their progress and wish the team the best for the future. But I want to throw this out to you guys listening. Do we have a crypto enthusiast listening to the show that are more passionate about the tech rather than quick profits? I want to hear from you, so email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. I want to hear about your experiences in the field and beyond, rather than just what coin is going to land on Coinbase or where you can buy your first Lambo. Because remember, kids, a Lambo is a depreciating asset, and that's not cool. Not cool at all. But enough from your tech dad here giving you a lecture. A big thank you for tuning in today, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.